Okay, everyone, welcome. My name's Adam Lossing, and this is Treasurer 101, second in our series of support for parent leaders in public education with a presentation by Susan Wilson called It All Counts, Treasurer 101. So I'm here to introduce Susan, and she lives at Winlaw, just outside of Nelson in the West Kootenays. She is a wife and mother of three boys, all of whom have successfully graduated from BC's public education system. Susan has been a parent volunteer since 1996, starting out at the PAC level as the Winlaw Elementary School DPAC rep. Susan learned quickly the importance of being involved with her children's education. Susan has held a variety of executive positions both on PACs and at the Kootenay Lake DPAC, including DPAC chair, for 3 years. Susan was actively involved in the Kootenay Lake School District Number 8 Policy Committee, working with teachers, principals, and school district staff to ensure the policies and procedures were fair for families. Susan has also sat on the district's finance committee for 6 years as a parent rep. In 2008, Susan joined the Governance Audit Implementation Committee and became chair of this committee in 2009. Through that experience, Susan has learned the importance of having a strong governance foundation in an organization to make sure the operations work smoothly and fairly. In 2011, Susan was elected to the DPAC Board of Directors as treasurer, a position she's held for 4 years. Susan will not be, unfortunately, seeking re-election at this year's BC AGM. So with that introduction, I am going to offer a poll for us to get a sense of the position of your PAC or DPAC as a registered society. So I'm just going to put that up there now. And you have three choices. One is obviously yes, no, or the third one being not sure. So the question being, is your PAC or DPAC a registered society? So those of you that are in the room, please take a moment to answer that, and then click the little red vote button down on the lower right-hand corner of the poll, and then we'll share those results with you.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Adam.
Yes.
And I just wanted to, there's also a couple of other polls that we're asking participants in the room. One is where you're from. And we don't need specific school districts. We're just looking for kind of a general geographic area, as well as which executive position that you hold, if any. So we're going to make you work a little bit before the presentation starts. And I also wanted to, I guess, welcome everybody. This is our second, in our second and last so far webinar. Our first one, PAC 101, was held a week ago. And we will be putting up the recordings as well as the PowerPoint presentations and supporting materials up on our website soon. We do, of course, have our spring conference and AGM coming up, and that seems to have taken a bit of a precedence over this. So, Adam, how are the polls going?
They're going well. I'm just going to end that first poll and put up the next one.
Okay, thanks.
Go.
I'm just
47% not registered societies, and 20% are, and 33% aren't sure. So
great.
Let me go to the next poll. And if you wouldn't mind just changing your slide to the map.
You bet. Oh. So as I said, we're just keeping it fairly broad. And what this does is it gives me a sense of who's in the room and which areas you're from. Normally, when I do this presentation, I have an audience and I rely on some interaction and a bit of feedback. So last week, I think it worked out well. So this week, we're giving it another go. It is odd not to have kind of an immediate feedback or input. There is a chat section. So feel free to post some questions down there, and then Adam will moderate the questions as they come in.
Okay, so I think we can probably end that poll now and go on to our next one. I'll just share the results there. So it looks like we've got 13% from the Chilcotin, 29% from the Kootenays, 16 from Northern British Columbia, and 26 from Vancouver, and 10% from Thompson Okanagan, and just scrolling down here, islands. My screen's too big. Can you see that one, Susan? Is that?
Oh, that's right. 6% from the islands.
Thank you. Okay.
Great.
So
Oh, so
put the next poll up, if that's okay.
yeah, you bet.
Okay.
So we've got a great cross section from people all over the province. That's terrific.
Okay, so there's the new poll asking about your executive position.
And this presentation is not exclusively for treasurers. So don't feel bad if you're not one. There's a lot of information that your chair and the secretary and everyone can learn from. So, and if you're considering running for treasurer at your own PAC or DPAC level, this is also a great way to get your feet wet.
Okay, so you want to end the poll now and post those results?
Sure.
Okay. So there we are, 18% in the chair position. Vice chair is 20. Secretary is 11. And treasurer is 38. That's a good mix here. DPAC rep 7. And you're going to have to tell me that bottom one again. I haven't resized my screen yet.
That's a school planning council rep. We've got 7%.
There you go. Thank you again. Okay. Well, that's the end of the polls. So I'm going to pass it over to you, Susan.
Great. Thanks very much. And thanks everyone for letting us kind of, knowing where you're from and which positions you're holding. So I'm going to jump right in. And basically, we're going to start. This is an overview of what we'll be covering tonight. And as I mentioned, if you have any questions, feel free to use the little chat portion. And yeah, and I will be stopping periodically for questions, and Adam will be able to read them out to us. So we're just briefly going through, right? What kind of PAC are you? Filling government forms, budgets, fundraising, the whole bit. So I'm gonna, we had asked the poll vote if you're a registered society or not. So basically all PACs and DPACs are registered or recognized in legislation. If you don't know if your PAC or DPAC is a registered society, chances are they're not. Because being a registered society requires a bit more reporting. It requires an annual fee, an annual report about your listing of officers and things like that. Now we have 20% who currently. So what is that? About 4 or 5 of us of you on the line that are registered societies. And I see that there's a question on how to register as a society. You would go to the Services BC, I think, or Registrar of BC, and you would fill in the forms. There's no right or wrong answer around whether or not you should become a registered society. There are certain benefits if you are applying for certain grants, if you are looking at being able to issue your own charitable tax receipt, things like that. Your school district is also a registered society, and they can issue income tax receipts if you wanted to run a fundraiser and offer that. And most BC-based granting agencies recognize PACs and DPACs as a nonprofit without having a society number. So I would contact the granting agency if you're considering becoming a society solely to access some grants. I recommend that you contact those granting agencies to see if they will recognize you without having to go through the forms. It's not too onerous, and those that are on the line that may, I'm not sure if you wanted to share very briefly in 140 characters or less, you know, the reporting requirements and, you know, the annual upkeep. It's not too bad, but it does take some work. So if you're considering it, I suggest that you know, maybe even talk to the registrar of societies and get a sense of what's involved prior to applying. So I'm going to move us on here. Of course, all PACs and DPACs are eligible for a gaming grant. And these are different than community gaming grants. PACs and DPACs actually are not eligible to apply for a community gaming grant. This is because you automatically get a grant from the gaming, and it's based for PACs. They receive $20 per student, and DPACs get a flat rate of $2,500. Applications are only received online between April 1 and June 30, but if you forget to apply for your gaming grant by June 30, they do accept applications over the summer. There's just no guarantee that your grant would be paid by September. So if you have any questions about gaming, I've got the website there, and at the last slide has some of the contact information. The people at the gaming branch are very, very nice people. So they're there to help you. And so don't feel afraid to call if you feel you've made a mistake or if you forgot to apply, things like that. Once you get your gaming grant, there is specific criteria. And for PACs, the general rule of thumb is extracurricular opportunities. So things like the yearbook, if you wanted to take out, pardon me, an ad in the yearbook or a newsletter, competitions. If the debate club is having a competition and you wanted to support them by buying prizes, graduation, those certainly qualify. Extracurricular field trips, specifically within BC. You can also give PAC and give PAC grants, gaming grants, to groups who are traveling outside of BC, but there's some specific criteria around that you have to have earned a spot. So for example, if your volleyball team made it to provincials that they have earned through competition, that is covered. Or if they were going to a recognized jazz festival to compete with other schools, that is also. And so there's a variety, there's a whole listing on the website of what the criteria is surrounding the PAC and DPAC grants. And PACs have up to 3 years to spend their money without prior approval. If you're planning long term, say, for a playground, and you estimate it's going to take 5 years, you can contact the gaming branch, let them know that, and they will make a note on your file that funds received in 2015 won't be paid out till 2020. So yeah, as I mentioned, they're very nice people. DPACs, their criteria is much more narrow. It's based on it's based on parent education. And basically it covers administrative costs, including BCCPAC memberships, travel to DPAC meetings, as well as educational promotional materials, as well as speaker fees, things like that. DPAC grants must be spent within the year. But again, if there is a project that maybe goes over 2 years, give the gaming branch a call. Just let them know that you'll budgeting money into next fiscal year, or you'll be saving some money over. And again, they'll make a note on your file. Filling out government forms, gaming grants, they do require an accounts summary report, and it's to be filed within 90 days of your fiscal year end. Each PAC's fiscal year end will vary. If you don't know what your fiscal year end is, you can call the gaming branch and they will let you know. Hopefully the last year's summary report is available and would also have that information on it as well. So that varies across the province when you fill that in. So registered societies, as I mentioned earlier, they have an annual report. And you must also file any changes to directors. So if you have changes at your AGM, you would have to file that with the society's registrar, and any changes to your constitution and bylaws also has to be filed with the society's registrar. And I'm very happy to say that the PST refunds are back. So basically, PACs can apply for a refund on the PST that you paid on qualifying goods. The website at the bottom gets into kind of great detail about what is covered and what is not. I've mentioned a couple things here. Leased goods, no, and related services, software that the PAC uses for itself, or if you have to purchase something to raise funds, the PST on that is not recoverable. So you have up to 4 years of the date, and you can apply once each school year. So if you do it every year, you can only do it once in a year. And I think that's it. The next slide's about GST. There's been quite a few queries to the office about this. I've contacted Revenue Canada a couple of times. I've spoken to a few different people. And what's come back to me is generally the refund is only issued to actual GST registrants. And that means that you would have to have a business number, a BIN number, and you would have to do quarterly reporting. Some, depending on sales or income, you may be able to do an annual report. The GST refund for school districts is 87% of the total. 87% of the total GST paid. And what some schools do, and what some PACs do, is they work out an agreement with the school district. So, for example, if you were reimbursing the school district $112 for something that the district bought in order to take advantage of the GST refund, you can negotiate that with the school district and only pay 87% of that $5 of the GST. So I would recommend, if you're looking at larger purchases, to inquire about with your the finance department in your school district to see how they handle that. Otherwise, to the best of my knowledge, PACs are not eligible to apply for a GST refund on their own. So, but I do suggest, if you want to contact the GST people directly, there's a link there. You can also find it in the phone book, I believe. Yeah, so usually a few questions get generated when we talk about taxation.
So yes, there is one there from
okay.
About the PST, and wondering if eligible purchases made by PACs directly, or if made by the school applies for the PST rebate.
Yes, from my understanding, you have to pay for the invoices directly, because the schools also have the ability to apply for PST rebate. So you can't double dip. So if you choose to reimburse a school for a cost, then you would want to find that out ahead of time, especially if it's a big, large cost. Otherwise, any invoice or purchase that PAC makes directly, and that also includes a reimbursement to a parent. So, for example, if I go out and I put $200 on my credit card to buy something, software for the kids, whatever is eligible, I can go back and the PAC reimburses me, and that's fine because I surrender the invoice and the original receipt to them. So I hope that makes sense.
So it sounds to me like if the purchasing is done by anyone other than the PAC, then who gets to claim the PST or the GST?
Well, the person paying the original invoice,
Ah,
right? So
yeah.
if you're paying a portion, so for example, if you've bought a bunch of uniforms that came to $4,000 and the PAC is reimbursing the school for 2,000 of that, you are eligible to receive that portion back, so
Okay.
long as it's identified on the receipt. Um, most schools will issue a receipt that says invoice number X, PAC paid $2,000, things like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so then there's another question here about late submitting gaming funds information or misdoing it. What happens?
Oh, yeah. A lot of PACs and DPACs, get late, especially if you're in transition or if you've just elected a new treasurer, and that's fine. I would call gaming and let them know that it's late, and just let them know that it's on its way, and they're quite forgiving about it. So have no fear.
Good stuff. That's it from my side.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to move us on to preparing a budget. And basically, we highly recommend that any money raised should have a purpose, and any monies kept should also have a purpose. I like to give my example of several years ago when I was first elected treasurer. A lady came to me and said that her PAC had an $8,000 GIC that just came due, and nobody could remember what it was for. There was nothing yet that they could find in the minutes. There was nothing. The bank had no real recollection about why that money was in there. So it was a great windfall. However, we do highly recommend that you have a purpose for the funds. So especially if you're fundraising, then you can identify that and say, oh, we're raising funds for the class trip, or we're raising funds for this. Preparing a budget helps a PAC and a DPAC, anticipate funds ahead of time. So if you, for example, if you know that you're always attending the BCCPAC AGM, then you could put in, some budgets for that. Those are anticipated expenses. You want to be able to present this to your membership. So it says here to build consensus. And this is so people understand where the money's going, where it could go. Maybe, if you've been running the same fundraiser and supporting the same programs for several years, maybe there's a new way of looking at it. Maybe there's a new way of supporting an initiative. Always important to pass your budget by a proper motion at a PAC or DPAC meeting. And this is back to if you put money aside, there's a record of it somewhere, so that in 4 years, if your GIC comes due, somebody will remember, or at least it's written down somewhere, what that money's for. It's amazing how many times we get calls about that, about we know we passed it at a meeting, but it didn't make it in the minutes. And for those of you that joined me last week, I went into a little bit more detail about how important it is for your minutes to be fairly accurate and to reflect any important motions that were made. So the next couple of slides are examples of budgets. And we have these actually on our website in Word format, so you can plug in your own numbers and just use this. I have these on here to show you an example. This doesn't mean that you have to do it this way. Please don't go back to your PAC and say, Susan said our budget has to look like that. This is just a template. So if you don't have a budget and you think your PAC or DPAC needs one, this gives you a starting point. You'll see that I had, the actual costs from last year and the proposed this year. I also have some notes, and I've found it's really helpful to include just a little bit of a notation beside what it is if it's not self-explanatory, right? Just explaining the travel and childcare, explaining what's included in meeting expenses. What could be included in there is, of course, meeting room fees if your school district charges you and things like that. So the next one is a PAC budget. Same thing, just, what happened last year, the actuals, what we expect we're going to spend this year, notes to those financial statements. So are there any questions on the budget before I?
Yes, there are. There's
Okay.
a question about a recommendation that the spending priorities be discussed prior to an executive meeting or at a general PAC meeting, or should we survey parents via newsletter or question or suggestions?
Oh, wow. It would depend on your school community. Really, I'd kind of say all of the above. Your PAC executive would have an idea of consistent and normal regular expenses, such as you'll notice I have a BCCPAC membership fee in there. So if you know that that's routinely what you pay out, your executive would often know that. It's always good to have a spending priority discussion at a PAC meeting. And depending on when you pass a budget, not all budgets have to start, in October. This is the one that I chose here. Some of them would start May 1st, some start July 1st. Usually this matches your fiscal year end. So just by, a few months prior to your fiscal year end ending, having those conversations, newsletter's great. Quite a few PACs are going to Facebook, where they have either an open or page or a closed page. A big word of caution: please don't make decisions on your Facebook wall, but certainly asking for input is a great way to get engage parents in your school community that may not actually attend a PAC meeting. So for example, if you put up on your Facebook wall, PAC is looking at buying yellow chairs, what do you think? You may get 30 or 40 responses of people that don't regularly attend a PAC meeting, but that gives you some really good ideas and some input, some feedback. So I'm not sure. I hope that answers your question. Were there any others?
Sounds good to me. Yes, there's one more. What do community grants consist of? This person asking the question.
Community gaming grants?
Well, it says that they don't currently have any. So just asking what they consist of, the community grants. I'm not sure. Maybe it's gaming.
Okay. Yes, I'm not sure either. If it's community gaming grants, there's 5 different funding categories.
Sorry, Susan, I'm just going to interrupt you there because
Yes.
I see where it's coming from. It's coming from your PAC budget that you have up there. There's a line item.
Oh, I see.
There's a
Sorry.
line item, community grants. So, but
Oh,
where would that money come from?
right. Oh, so if you look at under notes, number 3, that this PAC Excellent Elementary PAC is going into the community looking for grants. So they would go to, say, some local financial institutions, some foundations are going to do some grant writing, and they're planning to, if you look down in the expenses, they're planning to spend it on the playground. So, and community grants can be not just financial institutes, but sometimes your regional districts or your municipalities will have a $300 or $400 grant for nonprofits. Other, or not just organizations, but other, what am I trying to think of? I'm thinking of pulp mills and paper mills and any local businesses, especially in our smaller communities. They often don't mind donating to things. So that's what community grants are. They are different from gaming. So I hope that makes sense.
Sure. So there's one more question about the two slides that you've put up here for budgets. Are you going to be sharing those documents with the participants after the webinar?
Yes. And I realize that these are probably either blurry or skewed. So when I send out the slides, the PowerPoint, I'll also send some of the supporting documents that I've talked about. So so have no fear. I will send them out in Word format, so you can use these if you want. So I hope that helps and answers your question.
Yeah, that's good. Yep, that's the end of the questions.
All right. So my next slide was very popular when I did this presentation to our principals. A few years ago, I presented this both to principals across the province as well as trustees. Big reminder that parents are not mindless fundraising machines. That said, wrong with fundraising, nor is there anything wrong with not fundraising. And in my experience, it varies all over the province, whether a PAC chooses to fundraise or not. Sometimes they feel they must. Other PACs feel that they need a break and they take a year off from fundraising, and a combination of all. So I like that slide, so I like to put that in there. If you're considering fundraising with gaming, there are certain licenses that you have to purchase. Every single gaming event, and this includes cakewalks, 50/50 draws, raffles, same-day raffles, they all require a license. It's very easy. You go to the gaming site, you click gaming license. It's not difficult at all. I'm just going to pull up. So a raffle ticket, if, for example, if you're doing a 50/50 draw, sports pools, things like that, if you plan to, if you plan to raise up to $20,000, you'd have a Class A. If you're planning to, Class B, if you think you're going to raise more than 20, you'd get a Class A. So there's a variety of classes. The website is really good at pointing them out. There's a great chart. I didn't include the chart here because it would be just as fuzzy as my PAC and DPAC budgets. So if you were thinking about doing a special occasion casino, a Wheel of Fortune, all of that requires a gaming license. Depending on the license, they're either, I know, $10 or $25, and there is a reporting requirement at the end. So when you're planning to do some fundraising with gaming, I suggest that you sit down and kind of think about what it is that you're looking at, because some of the licenses dictate the cost of your tickets. So locally here, the Winlaw Elementary PAC used to auction off Hellman Canoe. So their tickets I think they were always $5, and that was dictated depending on the license that they had. If you're looking at a 50/50 draw, that was only $2, you would look at a different license. So just wanted to point that out because not everyone realizes that everything needs a license these days. So are there any questions about that? I know gaming. fundraising with gaming can be confusing. It just takes.
Yeah,
So,
there's some good ideas.
yeah.
There's some good ideas here and some questions. So, a
Oh, great.
couple of fundraising ideas of applying for a community grant from their city, and then a grant from the regional district and a nonprofit association. Credit union also has funds available. So those are some cool ideas.
Great ideas. Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's a few questions here as well. So which license is most common? Do we have to apply every time to do a cakewalk, etc.? One in September, one in June. What's your response to
Now,
that question?
Class A and B are certainly the most popular. They also have a Class D, and that's the single ticket up to $2. That's the prize itself can't be any more than $500. So if you're looking at doing like a quick cakewalk or 50-50 for an evening, it would be Class D. I'm just trying to look. There used to be the ability to apply for a license and have it operate over a certain period of time. So for example, you've got a lottery or you've got a raffle between June 1st and June 30th. So you would only need one license for that. And other than that, I'm just looking on their website now. I'm sorry I didn't have that question prepared. As far as I know, it is per event, but you may want to consult the gaming branch for that. So don't trust me on all that. But
Okay.
yeah.
So we've got one more question here, or a couple more actually. So silent auctions, do they require a license?
No, because the prizes are donated and they get a prize back. There's no cash. There's a cash transaction in purchasing the prize, but people don't win prizes or cash as prizes. That's kind of the bar. Yeah.
Okay. And then there's a question about the revenues from a gaming event. Where do they have to go?
Right. Any revenues from gaming must follow the same gaming criteria as the PAC and DPAC. So basically extracurricular events for students. Yeah, if you want to look at something that falls outside of the standard criteria, you can contact gaming and you can ask for a special ruling. So for example, I know of a school that they were building or they were assisting with repairing an orphanage down in South America. I think it was Nicaragua. And not a lot of it, gaming really doesn't cover that type of event. So they asked for a ruling and they got a special judgment to be able to hold a raffle and use those funds. But generally, the funds raised with gaming must follow the same criteria as your PAC and DPAC grant.
Okay. And one more question here about alcohol and lottery tickets as prizes. Can you comment on that?
As prizes. So you have a raffle on a $100 bottle of wine.
I'm guessing, yeah.
And that's kind of double dipping with your lottery ticket as a raffle ticket. That's if it's a raffle, if you're raffling off a basket full of stuff. To my knowledge, I don't think it matters what's in that basket. It can be alcohol, but I could be wrong as well. I would to me that would be sounds like a gaming branch question. I am aware of a wine and chocolate basket that a local high school did a couple of years ago, and it was over like $400 or $500 worth of specialty wine and glasses and cheese and chocolate, and they just got a standard gaming license for that. So, but unless you're thinking that you're giving those prizes away, and would you still need a license if you're giving lottery tickets instead of money? that would be kind of interesting. You can't actually give away lottery tickets to anyone under the age of 19, nor can anyone under the age of 19 physically draw a name out of the hat or a name out of the 50-50 draw. Anything to do with gaming must be handled by people 19 years and older, which is something I just learned not too long ago. So I hope that answers the questions. If yeah, the alcohol and lottery ticket one, I think would have to be a gaming branch question because I've not come into that.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for that. That's it from here.
Yeah. Okay. So now that you have all this money that you've raised, what are you going to spend it on? There's a variety of ways for PACs and DPACs to spend their funds. Back to our budgeted expenses. So back to our BCCPAC memberships and our spring conference and AGM. Does your PAC or DPAC, or primarily your PAC, does it have a application process? Do you ask your school or the teachers to apply for their gaming funds at all, or do you give them an annual wish list? You can also give your funds, not just gaming, but any of your funds to grade 12. Grad 12. There's bad grammar. To grade 12 students going to post-secondary. This follows the gaming criteria. They have to be attending a post-secondary to use gaming funds. So the next slide is, again, it's going to be small and fuzzy. We have a sample of this on our website in Word format so that you can, again, put your name in and use it as an example. The first page asks for things like how much do you want, what it's for, how many students are affected, or how many students will benefit from this. The second page basically outlines the eligible uses of a gaming grant. I do know of quite a few schools who use this format for all of their funds, not just gaming. Some PACs have made the decision to follow the gaming criteria for all their monies raised. And this would be a decision, of course, at the PAC level or the DPAC level if your DPAC fundraises. But in my experience, it's really good to have some kind of a process to send out the money, even if it's an informal, request to the principal as to what do we need this year, or what's on the wish list this year. And what this also does is it gives you a history. So if you are constantly being asked by the athletic department for new sports balls, you can go back in history and say, wow, we've given $400 for new basketballs every year. Maybe it's time we give volleyballs or soccer balls, or are they eating the basketballs? Why do they need new ones every year? It just promotes a lot of discussion. And yeah. So I'm just, yeah. I think that's record. I'm just going to go back. Were there any questions about dispersing the funds?
No questions about that. There's
Okay.
a bit of chatter about the alcohol thing, and it looks like from the participants' point of view, it looks like no alcohol at student events, but it looks like others have had the experience of having it at pub nights, and that there's a
Yes.
regular gaming license required for that. So, and no
Yes.
live animals.
No live animals. You can't give away kittens?
No, I guess not.
What's this world coming to?
Yeah.
Oh, thanks for sharing, everyone. This is great. I do miss the back and forth of a live presentation, but this is great. I'm going to get into, I'm trying to keep us on task here for an hour-long presentation. I know I rattle on a bit. I wanted to get into a little bit about record keeping. And basically the rule of thumb is for every check you write for your PAC or DPAC, there should be a corresponding piece of paper whether it's an official invoice, a receipt from the school, something scratched on the back of a napkin, something to document why you wrote this check. A lot of checks will have, of course, the little memo. Also, if you're writing a check to the school and partial payment or partial, maybe it's to cover transportation fees, make sure their memo states what that says. Simply saying thank you is really not recommended. I would ask your school secretary to kind of elaborate what this $100 check or $1,000 check, what the school actually used for that, especially if it's gaming funds, because gaming will need that breakdown. Right, making sure all the expenses are approved. If you don't normally do up a budget, some of our schools, especially in our rural areas, are quite small, and they may only write 5 checks in any given year. So they may not go through a budget process, but once you find that there's an expense that you would like to pay out, again, really important to highlight that in your minutes to record a proper motion that, that Susan moves, Adam seconds, that we're going to spend $200 on student transportation to the local pool. And again, it creates a history so that next year you can look at, oh, look, it costs $200 for the pool. Maybe this year we'll spend more or less. Highly, highly recommend that you have a double signatory on your account. This does bring up the question about some PACs are starting to look at online banking. And for the most part, you can limit online banking access to statements, deposits, things like that. So I would highly recommend that you talk about this, especially at a PAC meeting, to gauge the comfort level of that. A lot of PACs are getting debit cards so that they can make after-hour deposits. Again, especially in rural areas, if you have to travel a great distance to get to your bank or your financial institute. So it's worthy of a discussion at your PAC if you're finding that it makes more sense to get either a bank card, or if your treasurer wants online access to at least the bank statements to provide an update. After any event, we highly recommend that 2 people count the money, at least 2 people, and deposit it promptly. Again, another story. A friend of mine actually from a few years ago realized that she had about $1,800 of fundraiser funds stuck in her desk drawer that she found about 3 months later. And sad, nobody else caught it at the PAC level. She felt awful, and it got deposited immediately. But also quite important, if you can, if the fundraiser was actually held at the school, you can count the money on site and ask the secretary or the principal to store the money at the school, maybe in their safe or in a locked drawer, if you don't want to physically take it home. We don't really recommend that you take the money home, but again, if you have an off-site fundraiser, then sometimes you do have to take money home, but it's always best to count it ahead of time so that when it comes time to deposit, the people that counted the money and you counted $20, that they see that there's a $20 deposit. Always should be doing your bank reconciliations monthly. Some of our bigger PACs and DPACs actually have a review team at the end of the year, and these are people that may or may not come to PAC meetings regularly. If you put a call out in a school newsletter, if there are any accountants or bookkeepers in your school community, a lot of times they don't mind spending an hour or 2 just running through the books, and they would be looking for more calculation errors or inconsistent posting to different accounts, things like that. And I always get asked about managing your data, whether PAC should do it electronically or whether a manual ledger is better. And there's no real there's no real right or wrong way. It depends again on your school community. If we're talking about the small rural school that writes 5 checks a year, you may not want to invest in a software program for that. If you're finding that you're writing several checks every month and you're dealing with thousands of dollars, you may want to look at more of an electronic ledger. You don't have to invest in QuickBooks or Simply Accounting. You can easily set one up through Microsoft Excel. So there's lots of options for that. Now, were there any questions
Yes, there is.
about the record keeping?
Quickly.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a question about expenses that come up during the year that are not included in the budget.
So usually the process is if you pass a budget in September and you have either a surplus or a slush fund or something, as expenses come up and you realize, oops, we didn't quite anticipate that, you can still, by a motion at your PAC, you can still approve those expenses by a motion at your PAC, and you'll have to determine if you want to take money out of a different budget. Usually once a budget's passed, a PAC, it kind of goes forth and says, okay, we will go ahead and, pay for our BCCPAC membership. We will go ahead and stock the kitchen because we're operating the hot lunch program. So as they come up through the year, for sure, they should be documented through your minutes by a proper motion.
Okay.
I hope that answers.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. It's a good question too. Yeah. So, and then a request for you to elaborate on the third-party review.
Oh, okay. Okay. A third-party review, again, basically, depending on if you do your data entry manually or electronic, you would just simply ask a parent in the school community, sometimes an accountant or a bookkeeper. If you find that you want someone to spend a bit more time on it, you can ask your school district finance department. A lot of times they will have people on staff that could run through it. And basically all they do is they would take a look at the entries that you've made. And as I've mentioned, making sure that they're added properly, making sure that, the purchases for hot lunch are in the right column so that year-end reports can be accurate. That's kind of what a review team does, a third-party review. Some PACs do pay for a professional accounting firm to come in. Some of our PACs deal with several, $300,000 or $400,000. So for that own PAC's, state of mind, that they just hire an outside person to come in and review their books. So I hope that answers your question.
Sure. So, Susan, do you want to hold questions until you get through to the end of your presentation, or you want to keep the questions?
Oh, right. Goodness, it's 5:02. Okay, I just have a couple more slides. Thanks, Adam.
Okay,
just wanted to talk a little bit about reporting out at meetings. So every meeting, you should at least have some kind of highlight, basically highlighting the transactions since your last report. A lot of our PACs will actually physically, and our DPACs will pass around the bank statement, and it says right there, as of whatever date, this is how much money was in the bank account. And that just gives everybody a good sense of, where the money is, whether it's in a savings or in a GIC or in a regular checking. Right? For an annual report, for a treasurer's report, it's good to have just kind of the final numbers. If you have the actual spending that you've done, again, any highlights, maybe get into what the budget process looked like and how you came to this budget. It's always important that your AGM treasurer's report, if your treasurer is no longer running, this is an opportunity to highlight how wonderful it is to be a treasurer, and hopefully somebody will run for the position when you're no longer. I speak from experience on that. the most important thing is to make it relevant, understandable, and timely. Please don't report out on what happened in September if you're in May. You need to be able to keep your PAC up to date on its finances. Again, especially if you're running at really big numbers, or if you're doing a lot of playground fundraising or a lot of fundraising in general, really important to keep everyone up to speed on what's going on. And this brings me to our fundraising event. Does every fundraising event need a separate report? I get asked this question quite a bit. And again, it falls back to the school community and the school culture, I guess. Is this a fundraiser that happens every year, where a report can say we tried something new this year, didn't work, we should try something else next year? It really depends on the size. It'd be good to break down how much you collected in revenue, how much you put out in expenses. So I just wanted to point that out, because not everybody does an event report, and it would depend on whether your PAC really wants to look at on how well they did and what can be changed for next year. And I think I'm down to my more information. I have 2 more minutes. Again, here's your contact information for the gaming branch. As I mentioned before, everybody who works there, everyone that I have dealt with, has been very nice, very polite. If you have any questions about your gaming grant, about any reports that are filed, about applying for a license, they are very helpful. The leadership manual is, of course, available on our website. It goes into much more detail than we have here. You feel free to contact our office if you have any questions. And I included the link to Charity Village, and that's for our registered societies, because they often will have information and information bulletins on any changes to the Societies Act and any updates that our registered societies should be aware of. So yes, Adam, maybe we should get back to some of our questions.
Okay, yeah, we just have one more question, and it's about PACs charging back the service fee for NSF checks. Do they? That?
So somebody wrote you a check for their Purdy's chocolate and it bounced.
Yeah.
That has happened in my time as when I was treasurer. And yes, of course, we asked for a service charge to cover. It's like an NSF charge. I think is that the question that they.
Yep.
Yeah, and hopefully the people certainly understand that, right? Anywhere you go now that you write an NSF check, there are always a charge. There is a charge that is associated with that.
So yes, I guess I missed the first part though. So would you say that most PACs do that?
The PACs that I'm familiar with certainly have, right? I can't speak for all PACs, but I would encourage all PACs to recover their fees at least. And that might include having to chase someone down to do that. You may request cash. If someone's already bounced a check, you may not want to accept another check from them. So it would depend on the school community. We did have a staff member one year whose check bounced, and it was through a comedy of errors. So we did accept another check from him, but we certainly did bother him about it quite a bit, and he took it in great stride.
Okay, well, that's the end of the questions, and we're at our 8 o'clock sign-off time. So any last comments on the topic?
Well, just my email address is there. And so if anyone has any specific questions, please don't hesitate to email me. I will be sending out my slides and some of the supporting materials. We also will be posting a webinar section on our website that will have the information from the PAC 101 as well as this Treasure 101, so that you can refer to it. I believe there will be recordings, so you will get to hear Adam and I again anytime you wish on our recordings. And just a general thank you to everybody. I know it's a busy time of year, and I really appreciate you taking the time to join us.
Good stuff. Okay, well, I feel the same way. Thanks to everyone for showing up and participating so vigorously in the chat box there. And um, we'll see you on the webpage.
Okay, good night.
Good night.